All right, let's get into it. 3 policies you've got to die on the hill for in the name of advancing racial equity. Policy number 1, reparations. Should be no surprise to anybody. Let me be super clear about why I'm talking about reparations before I dive more into that specifically. You will recall video number 1, the precursor to our first video, was the definition of racial equity. Proportional fairness that takes into consideration the cultural and historic realities that have beset people of color as distinct from all other people and works to remedy the same. Reparations is racial equity in action. And I'm not talking about doling out a check to every Black person on these shores, or even every Black descendant of slavery. I'm talking about economic reparations. Things like zero interest loans to start and grow businesses for Black people. Zero interest home loans, including renovation and repair. Covering closing costs for home purchases for Black people. Minimum tiered spending requirements for procurement with Black businesses and or a percentage of representation of business spend for corporations far and wide. Free college for Black students, student loan forgiveness, and all of this for 100 years. Not that I've thought a lot about it, but I'm just saying. Policy number 2, affirmative action, which the Supreme Court just overturned, that we have got to fight to get restored. We've just got to fight to get restored. And here's the thing, what most people find frustrating or balk against in the name of affirmative action is the idea of selecting based on race, remediating anything that has ever happened to Black people. And it's an easy argument when you don't know what has happened to Black people, which is why racial equity is so important, which is why the third policy I'm going to talk about is so important. It's easy to formulate that argument. And for some people, it makes perfect sense because they don't know and therefore don't have to care and don't understand the macroeconomic implications of remediating what has specifically happened to Black people. It's also because racism has taught us that I am less of a human than you. And that you, white people, being in my presence is tantamount to a diminished experience. Racism taught us that, which is why it has to go too. It has to go. So affirmative action is an important economic tool to assure the sustenance of our country. We have to have more selected, disciplined, focused attention on how we are moving Black and brown people in and through the fundamentals of our economy, to include how we educate, to include how we hire, in order to remediate the policies that have held us back. Affirmative action is it has to happen. Okay, the third policy, and I actually have a fourth because I'm doing this again, saying I got 3 and then pulling more. Third policy, teaching Black history. I don't know if you call it CRT. I don't really care what you call it, but we got to teach the fullness of American history to include the policies, the procedures, the structures, the institutions, and the norms that required Black and brown people live inside of a box. What has happened to Black people and the plight that you see now? The plight that you see now is less about the choices that we make and more about the choices that we've had. It is critical for all Americans to understand the limitations of those choices and the residue that they have always left and will continue to leave, and how they have metastasized and now have a stronghold on our society, on our economy, on our behaviors, and how we even think about humanity and the designation of value. We have to teach it. Okay, my fourth, bonus policy that we've got to die on the hill for is mixed income neighborhoods, mixed income housing. Why is that important? Not only do we not know what specifically has happened to Black and brown people in our history, we don't teach it. And therefore, if you don't teach inequity, there's no argument for equity. We don't live together. We don't know each other. We still live, for the most part, in segregation. And yeah, it tends to fall along income brackets. But because of racism, it's synonymous with race-based segregation, right? For the most part. We still have too much segregation in these United States. And what happens when people live inside of segregation is that they don't understand the other community that they don't live around, grow up around, have an understanding, rooting, exposure to. And so when we become adults, because we're not teaching anything around Black and brown people, and we don't live around Black and brown people, all we have to understand Black and brown people, what we're pulling from is the narrative, like the narrative in the world. And the narrative in the world says, I'm not fully human. The narrative said, looking at me is looking at deficit. I have diminished value. I am to be marginalized. I am to be muted. I am to be stunted. That's the narrative. And it is most acutely, most poignantly disrupted when we live together. All right, that's it. 5-day racial equity challenge is over. Thank you all so much for staying the course, for tuning in, for your amazing comments, for the duets, for the stitches or stitching, whatever it's called, for the engagement. Stay tuned for more. We're building a community here, and I'd love to get to know you all so much more intimately and work this work with you. It's critical work. We have to get better at this. Thanks.